Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 233 of Rush Roundtable. Today we've got kind of a fun one, I guess. It's if you could only listen to 10 Rush songs for the rest of your life, what would they be? As my cat just runs really fast up the hallway. I don't know if you saw that. I have to rewind that.
Mhm.
Um, she heard Rush and she ran away. All right, so we got a brand new guest, Preston, top left-hand corner. We became friends on Facebook, and your buddies with Tim from Why Not, and so we're glad to have you, your bass player. So welcome to your first episode of Rush
Yeah,
Roundtable.
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you have the honor of going first. So before we get into this, though, I will just say if you like our stuff, Kofi, you can send us a tip on Kofi. You can check out all of our sponsors in the description of this video. There's a bunch of discount codes and various other things that you can check out. And yeah, without further ado, Preston, go ahead.
All right, so to start off with my favorite Rush song of all time, Dog Years. Just kidding. Um, Analog Kid, Limelight, Time Stands Still, Spirit of Radio, The Trees, and then for the deeper tracks, I have The Pass, The Camera Eye, Mission 2112, and Cygnus Book 2. And so my general thinking behind this was songs that either helped me get into Rush or songs that have sentimental meaning to me. Uh, and as a bass player, songs that I love the bass lines too, the way the drums and bass can interplay, some of the synth parts also as a keyboard player. And a lot of those songs lyrically are really profound, and I love every single one of those songs. And I threw in as an honorable mention subdivisions because if I truly tried to make this list, I'd end up coming up with 30 songs. So yeah, that's what I got.
I like it. You got a couple epics in there. You said 2112 and Cygnus
Cygnus Books too. Yeah.
Book Two. Okay. All right, good stuff. So for my list, I went subdivisions, How It Is live from R40, Armor and Sword, Animate live from R30, The Camera Eye, Xanadu, Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres, Emotion Detector, Grand Designs, and Red Barchetta. So, I figured I kind of had to start with my favorite Rush song of all time, which is Subdivisions, a song I never get tired of. A lot of these songs are just songs that I never get tired of, and then there's a few that I'll get into in a second. Um, so How It Is and Animate both live from R40 and R30 respectively. I talked about that on last week's episode. Um, Songs that I like the live versions of more than the studio versions, and I had to include both of these because they just get me so hype and they just bring me back to certain points in my Rush fandom that I have to have on this list. Um, and then a few of my favorite tracks, Motion Detector, Grand Designs, had to have them. Power Window songs, my two favorite Power Window songs. The epics, I threw three epics in here, not because I love these tracks. I guess I do love these tracks, but because kind of figured if I can only listen to 10 Rush songs for the rest of my life, you have to have some epics, right? I mean, they're songs that those are three epics that they're not really songs that I can put on at any given time, but they're songs that I get hooked on once or twice a year anyways. So I figured why not? And then the last one, Red Barchetta, literally heard it on the radio last week twice, like back to back days randomly. So I was like, well, I'm compiling this list. I need one more song. Let's put Red Barchetta on here. Why the hell not? It's moving pictures. It's awesome. It's a great driving track. Um, it's ultimately one of my favorite of the hit tracks. So I love it. Had to have it. So
It's a great list.
that's my list. All right, Tyler, you're next. What do you got?
Oh boy, what an unenviable task. I mean, because again, here's a huge catalog. So I went with in no particular order because again, your number one could be anything on any given day. So I went with Finding My Way, Here Again,
Bytor and the Snow Dog, Anthem, Bastille Day, Cygnus X1 Book 1, Natural Science, Free Will, The Analog Kid, and Turn the Page. And just basically my rationale was just the top 8 of those tracks were like those ones. Just, I mean, all of them really, these are the ones that have stuck with me throughout my fandom since 1981. And Analog Kid was like, that was the first Rush album that was out after I had kind of discovered them, and that was like, I was ground floor for that. So that song's always, all of these have stuck with me. These are like go-to tracks for me. And then I had a weird little alternate cheat. If I was going to stick with 10 songs for the rest of my life, uh, All the World's a Stage, even though it has a few extra songs, but they're kind of mashed together. But that was kind of my thinking. Those songs are the ones that this just hit me every time. Here Again's a little bit of a deeper track, and that not really like one of the big, super big classics, but that one there's a particular summer, high school. Me and a buddy listening to that song, and it just hit just right. And it's like every time I listen to that, it takes me right back to that spot. And I think that's what all those songs do for me, is they're the ones that's like throughout my life, those are the ones I always go back to. Yeah. But again, we could do this list tomorrow and it could be totally different. Other than Bytor and the Snow Dog, that's a non-negotiable. That's always going to be there.
So you
Exit
said
stage left version.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's why I said extra. Well, yeah, that too. But that's why I said All the World's a Stage, because their version on there is just, it's top shelf, But yes, yeah, it's so hard to pick 10, but I did my best. What was that, Ryan? What did you say?
So you said that it was in no particular order, and then
Right.
I listened to you list them in order of
Yeah,
not by album though. Like you said By Turn the Soul Dog and then Anthem, so not in chronological order by album, but
right,
or on the album. But yeah.
Largely 70s.
Yep,
Again,
I noticed that.
You could go. I mean, you could just do a top 10 on the 80s. You could do a top 10 on the 90s and the 2000s too. I mean, it's just like, but so that's where it gets really difficult. But I had to go where my fandom went was, first album I ever got by them was 2112, and it had at that point had been out for 5 years at that point. So it was just like,
Sure.
And then soon after Signals came out, and then I got All the World's a Stage, and those are kind of like the core albums that just stick with me. And Cygnus X1, of course, is like, I don't know, it's hard to top just because it's so weird. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, I got to do this tomorrow. So I had to go through through the albums real quick and just kind of make sure it's like, okay, is this list good? So I went through chronologically and but there were a couple that were just like, okay, yeah, you got to throw that one on. So that was kind of my thinking there.
I mean, you did say, this is the type of thing that would change daily, right? I mean, I pulled this topic, I think, from either Reddit or one of the Facebook groups. I mean, I'm on Reddit every day, Facebook, every once in a while. But if I see someone post a topic there or some kind of discussion board there, I'll see what we can do to turn it into a topic for a Rush Roundtable, because then we can make a video out of it. Because then there's obviously visual discussion. So shout out to whatever person I forget, it was months ago, but once this topic was put on on our document that we have, our running document for topics listings, I went through my head. It went through my head a bunch of times that this is going to be ever changing until we record it, right? So here we are, and there's probably a handful of songs that would make it every time for me, but a whole bunch of interchangeable ones as well. So
yeah.
Rob, before we bring you in here, I just want everybody to give me a drum roll, please, because we are permitting here another panelist.
Oh,
Cut out. There he is. Well,
there
Come on.
Come on, this guy. We gave you a grand welcome here. So, Paul, you'll be up last. We're on to Rob. So, Rob, why don't you go ahead with your list?
All right, here we go. So I have the Camera Eye, Natural Science, The Necromancer, 2112, La Via Strangiato, Xanadu, ESL version, Cygnus X1 Book 2, Caravan, The Analog Kid, and Middletown Dreams. So there was a trend there for a minute of all the epics. I was like, if I'm gonna hear a Rush song, I want to hear a song. I want to hear the whole bloody thing. I want to hear the whole enchilada. I want the whole length, everything. So then the last three were kind of like little right-hand turns, and I did this purely by instinct because I was going in a trend. I'm like, you know what? I gotta put three other ones that are just basic songs, not suites or epics or anything like that. So Caravan was like, the last album. It's got a little proggy elements in there, which I love from the first 7 tracks. The Analog Kid is like a nostalgic track for me. Milltown Dreams has that more like cinematic feel to it. So that was really the thing going into it. It was, keeping these longer songs, but then the right turn came in. I'm like, I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to overthink it. And that's how I came to my list. So simple as that.
I thought you were going to list off like the 10 longest Rush songs, just
Yeah.
because if you're stuck listening to 10 songs for the rest of your life, well, you might as well just have the most Rush, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was the general thinking. Like, I want to hear like everything they do, the singing, the breaks, interludes, all that stuff. I want to kind of really have a good headspace to just listen, So
yeah, it's a good list.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, what you got?
Which one?
Which one?
You.
Oh, me? Okay. Bit of a pattern. I'm not sure yet, but so my top 10, they're in order of from the albums. Cygnus X1 Book 1 and Book 2. La Villa Strangiato, Jacob's Ladder, Natural Science, YYZ, Camera Eye, Subdivisions, Caravan, and Headlong Flight. So I got into Rush like early 90s, and I'll be quite honest, until recently, the synth era just didn't do it for me. So it's not my instinctual, I guess, my instinct to pick someone from the 80s or the 90s. So I always went back to the 70s, the prog rocks, right? The more progressive type of songs, which is where I couldn't ignore Caravan and Headlong Flight, because I found they almost went back to that kind of proggy sound, like to Rob's point, like Caravan and Headlong Flight. But it's so hard to nail it down to 10 songs. I had like 5 right off the top, then the other 5 I'm going, okay,
Yeah, right.
which ones? It's really tough. Like I could easily make a top 30, but
yeah,
I just couldn't do it. So, but that's my top 10. And yes, I've got some long, lengthy, proggy stuff to fill time, but yeah.
Well, you said which?
Yeah.
Well, you said which one for which Paul?
Yeah.
Canadian Paul, American Paul.
Sure.
Good.
Okay.
All I can think is the South Park, where the Canadians are their faces are split apart, and they're like
Terrence and Phillip, yeah.
yeah.
Hello, Terrence.
Paul's got his own South Park character that we did for the Stick It Out, so we'll have to make you one, but look like Terrence and Phillip instead. Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Kyle's little brother Ike.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Paul. So why don't you give us 10 other than the Garden?
Other than the garden, well, the garden's in my 10, so do I get a bonus 11th then?
Yes, you get a bonus 11th. Yes.
All right, so not counting the garden, I could put one back in. Excellent. Closer to the Heart, Marathon from a Show of Hands, War Paint, Alien Shore, Time Stands Still, Armor and Sword, Vapor Trail, Body Electric, After Image, and Xanadu. Reasoning being, mostly selfish. They're either the first songs I got into, my favorite song off whatever album they represent, my son's favorites on there. I wanted to include epics. I couldn't make this list in good conscience without Xanadu, but outside of Xanadu and Closer to the Heart, you'll notice that everything came from, where are we, 1984 and forward, I think. So I'm sticking to my era, but if I'm going to only listen to 10, they're going to be 10 I love.
What's you said your son's favorite song is on that? Which one's that?
Body Electric.
Body Electric. Okay.
Yeah. That was his gateway into Rush. So yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we're only 15 minutes in, so why don't we just real quick run through some honorable mentions. Because I'm sure I didn't note any, but I can give you some just off the top of my head. Um, Whoever wants to go first, just no reasoning, just throw some honorable mentions out on the table that were cut from your. A lot of people said the word 30, right? So that were cut from your list. So why don't you, whoever wants to go first.
I got, oh, this was, like I said, this goes back to just me just kind of prepping the list itself, but Driven, Subdivisions was another one. Body Electric, God, that's a doozy too. Oh my God. And then Digital Man. Those were kind of, yeah, those were sitting right on. It's like those got to go in, but then I was just like, no, that was just a tough choice. But those were four that kind of stuck out to me as being honorable mentions.
Okay, Rob, I think you were gonna go.
Yeah, I was gonna say Marathon, Vital Signs, Farewell to Kings, The Trees, which I want to have as part of the epics, I guess, sort of epic. Bravado, The Pass, The Garden, and Caravan, which I think I have right here. So I kind of had a couple of repeats in my honorable mention short list. So
Good stuff.
I got mine. Far Cry, The Pass, Lock and Key, probably also show of hands version. Double Agent, Subdivisions, Kid Gloves, and The Anarchist.
nice.
Preston.
Yeah, okay. Now that I'm hearing everybody else's stuff, I probably have to put La Villa Strangiato on there, and I'd say Marathon and Mystic Rhythms, Body Electric. I have to put The Garden on there, Paul. uh, gee, this list is so hard. Probably YYZ, Xanadu for sure, and probably The Fountain of Lamneth.
Mm.
Nice.
Nice.
All right, Canadian Paul.
Yeah, I got about 6 here. Well, The Garden. That was a Losing It, Malignant Narcissism, Far Cry, Analog Kid, and Turn the Page are mine.
Yeah, for me,
Losing.
just I guess in chronological order, just off the top of my head, maybe Here Again, Beneath, Between, and Behind. The Trees, La Villa Strangiato, Natural Science, Limelight. I think Camera Eye was on here. Limelight. Shit, anything from Signals, literally the whole album. Anything from Power Windows, the whole album.
Yeah.
After Image. Between the Wheels, Lock and Key, Mission, High Water. Love High Water. Can't do without High Water. Open Secrets, Second Nature. I don't know. Presto, the title track, Presto. War Paint's also really damn good. Available Light, man. Available Light. And now that I'm thinking of it, I don't know how that didn't make my list.
Yeah.
Roll the Bones probably could have done without anything from Roll the Bones, honestly. But
Dreamline was this.
Double Agent probably could have been on my list. Alien Shore, Everyday Glory. I mean, the list goes on and on, right?
Everyday Glory.
Everyday Glory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Test for Echo. There's a couple from Test for Echo. Totem is probably my favorite song from that. That could have been on here.
Yeah.
I put How It Is. I mean, I could have put anything from Snakes and Arrows, other than probably Hope. That probably doesn't need to make it, but I could have put anything from that. Faithless, The Larger Bowl, The Way the Wind Blows.
Spindrift for me.
Spindrift, yeah. Probably could have put anything from Clockwork Angels too. So
I'd put the entire album on there if I could.
yeah, if that doesn't sum up how difficult this was for us to pick 10 songs only, which is probably, like I think Tyler said, ever changing. I think, and not only make the list, but to come on here and explain it, and I told you guys beforehand not to explain every single choice, but like explain your general overall thinking behind making your list. It's Rush, man. We love Rush. We love all Rush. All Rush is good Rush. So if you're watching, let us know in the comments what your 10 Rush songs would be. Obviously, we know it's hard. You don't need to say that. Or if you want to say that, you can, but you don't need to say that. We get it. But no, I mean, include live versions if you want, and include bootleg versions even if you want. If there's, to kind of correspond with last week's episode, if there's some bootleg you love, or some specific live show version you love, include that. Paul, next week we are back to Vapor Trail song discussions, correct? We are.
Rob will be hosting The Stars Look Down.
All right. Good stuff. So yeah, back to Vapor Trail song discussions next week. Use code RushFans10 at Halftime Beverage if you want to get yourself some Rush beer in the States, of course. Henderson for the Canadian folks. Yeah, that
I don't
code.
know about that on my part.
Well, have your parents order you.
Give it a few years.
You didn't hear that from me, yeah.
I won't tell.
Yeah. No, so yeah, there's again, as I said in the beginning of the video, there's a bunch of discount codes and links in our description for sponsors and things to check out. And yeah, we will see you next week on Rush Roundtable. See you, everybody.